Grand Rising, you beautiful people. Joella May here. Don't forget to like and subscribe down at the bottom. Today is December 6th, 2022. I just finished one of Dr. Dispenser's healing meditations. It was very interesting. The things that kept coming through as I was going through my meditation. It was very centering, relaxing, enjoyable. Sometimes when I do meditations, it can be a very painful process. This one in particular was very uplifting. It was kind of like a full circle meditation. How do I explain that? I was going through my emotions of the year, but not so much the ones from the beginning of the year, more from the ones from the last 6 months. If you've been following me, you know that my second husband and I separated on New Year's. And now that it's December, it's coming up to almost being a year. This year of my life has been the biggest life-changing moment for me, in a way. Really learning how to separate myself from the things that don't guide me into my true direction. How do I explain that best? It's interesting because when I was in my meditation, so many things kept coming up that I wanted to say, that like made such strong, beautiful points. But it's hard right now without the guidance of his voice in the background, taking me through certain processes to be able to explain them to you. So I'm going to try to put this together as best as I can. So I'll be doing a little bit of a recap. Yeah, we'll call this the 2022 recap. Because you have to have a recap in order to move forward in life. It's kind of like dumping out all your thoughts. Like, a really good way to do that is dumping all your thoughts out on paper. For me, I seem to do better with dumping out my thoughts out on video. Sometimes I do go with paper, but I'll get distracted because my words and my mind will move faster than my hand. So that's why video seems to work better for me. And then I can see my emotional responses a little bit more of what I'm trying to express at the time. And I don't get caught up in the spelling of the words. With my growing up with my dyslexia or reading disabilities in some fashion, because I was never, I didn't really have one-on-one work with teachers so much. I was kind of like, oh, is the one in the back or the one in the front? Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. I'm going to stick to 2022. So the split happened in January, and it broke me, or as I would say, it put me into my chrysalis for full metamorphosis, so I could come out into a full butterfly. I still haven't fully reemerged yet, because I'm still like really sucking up my healing process. So I really feel like I'm in the meat of the mush. And I don't feel like my body's reformed yet. it takes time. Is you know, we were together off and on for so many years, and it just, you get a lot of attachments to having someone in your life on a regular basis. And when they're no longer in your life, there's all these empty spaces. And it gets confusing on how to fill those empty spaces. Yeah. And that was part of my process, was my life was so wrapped around my second husband's wants and desires and building a future with him that I forgot everything about my true inner self and what my purpose is and how I'm supposed to work in this world and associate myself with this world. I know, wearing t-shirts, I look weird sometimes. I don't like how the undershirt bunches up, but it's bigger than this shirt, so anyway, enough of that tangent. So in January, it was January, February, March, and part of April was mainly me letting go of what I thought was my life. But the devastation happened so I could move forward in my true self. I didn't really understand that. I mean, I got it. I had a sense of it, because there's always signs that happen throughout a relationship that tell you, hey, there's the red flags, but you ignore the red flags because you're so into the relationship that you're like, that's okay, we'll work through it. Or that doesn't matter so much. That doesn't matter so much. That's that self-talk that we do. It's funny because my mentor was just talking about that yesterday, how we convince ourselves not to progress. Because we want to satisfy other people's needs. And so that was a huge thing for me, because we had been together for so many years. His needs became my needs, and I didn't differentiate between my needs and his needs. And we didn't have boundaries between each other, so he didn't differentiate his needs from my needs or my needs from his needs. He thought he was satisfying my needs and not satisfying his needs. Vice versa, I thought I was satisfying his needs and my needs, but neither of our needs were really met because we were trying to satisfy each other's instead of our own. And that's what happens in relationships a lot. We become so integrated into our partner that we want to satisfy their needs that we forget about our own, because we get into that self-talk where we convince ourselves that it's okay to put our dreams on the side because these daily tasks need to be done. So it's like a double edge. Gotta let go of some of those daily tasks and break them down so you have more self-care tasks or an equal amount of self-care tasks compared to daily life tasks. So, it's like this whole process, and I would love to explain it more, but I'm not going to do it on this live. If you would like to know more, I'm going to learn how to put all the links into my different YouTubes and videos and things, and I'm learning how to cross-reference from one social media to another. It takes a little time for me to figure out exactly what I want to do, because I haven't been working with my computer. I'm still in the middle of remodeling my house, but my niece is due to have a baby, so I wanted to get up here and help them get ready, because she's already starting to do the nesting, and whether it's my ego or the family desire, to have the baby come into a peaceful, restful area. So that is my goal at this point in my life for December. It's not all of December. I'm giving 10 days of time to this remodeling efforts so I can go back home and then put in another 10 days of time before the next set of holidays, so that when the new year comes, my house is ready for the new year. That's my scheduled plan. I believe it will all work out because my cycle ran its course. It ended the day before I started my trip. So I'm working with that 28-day span, or 26, because you don't want to count the last 2 because that's preparation. So I'm working with this 26-day span to make sure I accomplish the things I want to accomplish in my timeline. Because we can set goals, but if we don't set goals with structure, then everything falls apart when a glitch happens. You want to set goals that allow for those glitches. What are those glitches? Daily life. What's something that is a regular glitch for a female? Our flow. Following our flow, understanding our flow. In order to do that, it's best, for me, I found that it's best to follow the moon cycle. My flow is very happily to come when the new moon arrives. So I am able to set my calendar schedule around that. I know, and I've tried to shorten it, but I know I need to give myself that 5-day span of just like self-care. 95% self-care. Sometimes 110% self-care. Sometimes I can give a little bit more, but I noticed in my flow that if I try to work through my flow, it will extend the time to it and make the end of my flow more painful instead of an even distribute. But there's always one day where the pain is the strongest for the biggest emotional release. What I mean by that is our bodies are designed to take in and release. I mean, just think about our heart and how the blood flows in and out of our heart, and how our, when the blood has gone through our body in the process and then it gets dirty because it's pulled out all different kinds of toxins, then it comes into your heart to clean, and then the blood is clean again, and then it goes back through the body to pull out the toxins. Well, this cycle, this effect, this way is what we do with everything. It's just on a different level or a different way of wording it. It's still the same motion. It's still the same loop. Now, this is a good loop. Some loops can get very frustrating, but we all live in circles. Everything evolves around. I mean, it's just a perfect example. The shedding of our own skin. We will slowly peel here and there if we traumatize our skin, like from an acid peel or a sunburn or something. But naturally, our body will shed our skin every 7 years. It won't do one full layer like in a reptile. It'll do it in pieces. Have you ever noticed, every once in a while your hands will peel? And it's a cycle. And if you actually followed that cycle, it's a long cycle to follow. Just like any math equation, it's a cycle, it's a loop. It's like if you learn your 2 times table, it's 2, 4, 6, 8. It's never ending. It's always this 2 complex, or 3, 3, 6, 9, 12. Same with 5, 5, 10, 15, 20. It's always this cycle. It's another circle bringing it around to the same grouping. And that grouping, that number, represents something, more than one thing. It's like the number 1, represents leadership. Number 5 represents change in family. And you can look at through all different genres and different things. It doesn't have to be through the spiritual elements. It can just be through a mathematical equation, and you'll still find the patterns. It's easier to see the patterns if you open up your mind to spirit, but the patterns are still going to hit you in the face whether you want to believe them or not. You could just call them your little gremlin friends, because they're always multiplying. They're never dying. And that's something about spirit that I think some of us forget, because we try to block spirit out. We try not to acknowledge the other elements around us, because they're not in our 2 and 3 dimensional. They're in our 4th, 5th, and 6th, 8th, 9th dimensions. They're not these basic tangible things. Because when we go through that, we go past that, we go through those tangible things as if they're just open molecules. It's all a science. So going back to my emotional attachments and breaking down of the loss of my second husband, but in reality, it was the constant change, the forever never-ending change of the way life works. For me to get ready for the next level of my life, to be able to follow my true purpose more, I had to go through that devastation to let go of all of those extra attachments that I've been holding on to for so long. They were never me. They were never a part of me. They were never needing to be me. But I felt like they were, because they were constantly being programmed into my daily cycle. And what I mean by constantly programmed into my daily cycle, it's just like, you go to school every day, 5 days a week, and you go there, and then they have you do the national anthem, and then so you end up learning it, and it's like in your head forever, and you never can get it out, and and does it really, and will it mean the same to you when you become a grown-up as you did as a kid? No. Maybe. That's up to you and your open-mindedness and the way you look at things, and if you want to stay in that particular loop. There's nothing wrong with the national anthem. Don't get me wrong. I have pride in our country. I have pride in every country. I have pride in the world. I have pride in the fact that I have so many different nationalities in my bloodline. I'm extremely proud of that. Like, extremely. Like, it, and because I'm so connected to spirit, and having so many different nationalities in my bloodline, I feel all of those different nationalities and how they were affected in life previous to my existence, and how it related to me, and how it connected to all the timelines. Now, it could get real complicated real quick. But, as I believe in past lives and past life regression, I think is a very important thing to look into and study. And this is something that my second husband and my first husband were very hesitant of. But now that my first husband has passed, and now that he's in spirit, he understands. It took him a little time, because it always takes a little time when a spirit first passes, because they have to go through their own chrysalis or metamorphosis. Because there's levels in spirit world as there are levels in this existence that we live in, to be in a human body, to have this human experience. Because we're all multi-dimensional creatures. We're not just human beings. We're in a human body, and there's our mind is way more beyond the limitations of our flesh and bone. And we can create our flesh and bone to be that superhuman body, but we have to recondition our thought process to allow ourselves to believe in ourselves enough to know that we can do these things. Full knowing, not just saying, oh yeah, I can do this. And then when you're working on it, you're like, why doesn't it work? Because it's a true belief within yourself, within your subconscious, in the back of your mind, where all your history stays. All those thoughts and things that you want to get to, you don't get to them until you allow yourself to let go of all these structures that you look at every day. Now, the biggest question is, in your life, Are you happy? Are you doing what you want to do? Or are you just doing what you think you need to do to survive? Because if you're just living in survival mode, you're not living your true life, your true self. You're not being true to yourself, to your existence. You should be happy. We all should be happy. That should be your biggest strive. That's what I learned through this emotional process. The happiness is key. And yeah, while I was going through my process, as I said, my cup is not full. My cup is nearly empty. I'm learning how to refill my cup. When my cup is full again and it's overflowing, then I will overflow all the abundance to everyone I know. But until my cup is full, I will keep to myself, protect myself, and make sure that I'm not giving all my energy out anymore. And that was a hard process throughout this year for me to understand, not giving out my energy, that I needed my energy to heal myself. Is one of the biggest things I did to break out. So I had this huge process that I went through, right? Through the split. And between the months of January to March, I really didn't know what to do with myself. I could barely watch TV. I could barely eat. I could barely think. I would make a crock pot of lentils and I would eat on that for 3 or 4 days until it was empty, and then I'd make it again. I'd vary, like the vegetables are seasoning a little bit so it tasted differently, but I was like, that was the main thing I was eating, because I couldn't comprehend being up on my feet for more than 5 minutes at a time. You know, the only other thing I would do is make my tea. Like, I wasn't even making my smoothies or my other drinks or anything. And when I was going through that, that's when I really learned that I haven't been taking care of myself for a long time. And I was taking a good long look in the mirror, and I was realizing how much more I've aged this past year alone and compared to the past 5 years or 10 years. Because it was such a heavy burden on me doing things that were nothing of my true self. And I didn't realize that. I was reliving things of my younger self that I wanted to hold on to, that I didn't know how to let go of. And it's still a part of me, but focusing on my healing center right now is the most important part of me. Once I feel my cup is full and I feel like I can constantly ground myself with just a quick thought, like a breathe in. When I can get to that point, that's when I know I'll be able to level up and really dive into the things that I want to do and for the way I want to help others. But until I get to that point, I'll just be sharing my fumbling journey with you every day. And I was really pushing myself to get to that point in the middle of the year. So what I did for that, as I prepared myself, because as I said, it wasn't until April that I actually started going out and pushing myself. I did, and see, this is interesting. I'm going to step back for a second. And I'm going to go way back for a minute. So when I was pregnant with my son, right, I was 29. I had my son. 3 days after my son was born, a friend of ours had an event. And really wanted to go to the event. I was really excited to go. But I was still bleeding a lot. And the doctor said, stay off your feet or you're not going to stop bleeding. And I was like, But I really wanted to. So we went to the event. It was great. I loved it. We had a lot of fun. It was the first time I ever been out to an event like that. Um, music, food, and everything. It was like a festival, but it was just, I think it was my friend's first event, because I was 29. I'm 49, so that's 20 years ago. Yeah. So, the reason why I say that is because even though I had an amazing time at that event, I over pushed my body. So yeah, the doctor was right. It took me a long time to stop bleeding. It took me almost 4 to 6 weeks before I stopped bleeding after I had my son. And I was like, okay. And that was the first time I realized if I push myself beyond my self-care limits, my body kicks back. That's what example I was trying to get at. And it kicks back hard. Now, if I had taken it slow and not gone to that event that night, I might have stopped bleeding within a week. I don't know. But I got super depressed during that period of time when I wouldn't stop bleeding. I felt so self-defeated because I didn't feel like I was accomplishing my many goals. I felt like I was a bad mom. There was like all these things that came to it. It was I tortured myself for a while, and I really believe that's part of the reason why it took me so long to stop bleeding after his birth. And the reason why I bring that up is because my second husband and I, we split on New Year's. And then I think it was maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks after that, my same friend 20 years later was having an event, much bigger, grander event. And I pushed myself to go to that event. And you know what happened? I had a migraine the entire event. I had the biggest emotional breakdown. I was like, I didn't do any self-care. And my body shut down. My whole world shut down. I raced to get home, and I stayed in my room for 3 months. Yeah. So those are 2 prime examples I give of pay attention to the self-care your body wants and needs. Don't push through it. Embrace it. Take it in. Breathe through it. Flow through it. Let it process out your body naturally. Don't just say, oh, I can take it. Because sometimes your body will kick back and say no. You need more time now because you didn't listen. And you didn't listen again. And you didn't listen again. So that's why I bring those examples up. That's why my healing process has been taking so much longer than it could have. I could have been, woulda, shoulda been in so many different levels. But the universe guides me in a certain way. So that way, my lesson might be harder to learn, but I'm gonna learn it when it's a little bit harder than when it was too easy. You get it? Does that make sense? It's just like, for example, my salt inhaler. It's amazing self-care that I start doing for myself every day. Because I grew up in salty air. I was a lot happier and healthier around salty air. Don't get me wrong, I love traveling, but I needed the extra salt in my life. And that's why I got this. Paying attention to this, I was trying to have a reflection on what self-care was my body naturally getting when I was younger. Sea salt. So it's those little things that sometimes we need to tune into to say, okay, yeah, I need to do this on a regular. It's just like another example it's winter now. My hands, they dry out so much faster because there's no humidity. It's so dry, and then having to sleep with the heater and everything. So I gotta make sure that I put oil on my hands. And it's like my sister and I are having this huge discussion yesterday between lotion and oil. It was like, how did lotion come about? I really don't know, because it does not work for me. Whenever I put it on, I always feel like I have this sticky plastic coating on me. Even with natural lotions, I don't know what it is. I feel like oils are more penetrative, more natural to the body. Just like we were talking about petroleum jelly, it has a plastic base to it, and that's why it just sits there on your skin. But it's not healthy for your skin, especially long-term factors. But if you're in like those crazy cold weather climates and you're on a budget, it's better than not. So there's different levels to things on every factor. It's like, you want to keep your skin from cracking, well, you can use the cheapest stuff, or you can use the best stuff. And to me, I like using this stuff. It's called All Good, right? Because it has all the natural oils and plants and things that I keep at home, that I use all the time. So, I've had this for flipping ever. It's like super major thick. It's very light smell to it. Kind of just like has a tint of a lavender scent to it. I love that. But my quick fix that I always keep with me no matter what is comfrey oil. Because this oil is for like skin irritations, burns, or anything like that. And when I'm traveling and I get in different areas, sometimes I'll feel itchy and I don't know why. So I'll put a little oil on and rub it in, and it kind of chills it out. Because when you're traveling, you go into different climates and different atmospheres and stuff. There'll be different insects, or there'll be different bugs, or there'll be different ailments in the air that will affect your skin or your body in different ways. So that's why I like to keep familiar things with me. That's why I take my spices with me and my vitamins with me. So I have those regular things with me that keep my immune system up against going through different ailments and elements when I travel. And talking about travel, so that's what I did for myself this year. I went on a cross-country road trip. It was my bucket list. Because ever since I was 9 years old, I think I was 9, I went on a cross-country road trip with my grandmother, and I got to see all these different states, and my favorite one that I got to see was Arizona, and I never went back. I never got to go back with my first husband, never got to go back with my second husband, never got to go back before I got married. I was 9, so it took me 40 years, almost, 39 years, because I just turned 49. I was 48 when I went, because my birthday was in October. But yeah, it took me 39 years to get back to my most favorite place, and I did not want to leave. I was so emotionally attached to it and overwhelmed with the beauty of it and the essence of it and the colors and everything about Arizona and the desert. And not all of Arizona is only desert. There's like so much beautiful green, and it's an experience that I wasn't ready to let go of. But it taught me a lot about how to prepare for things. Because my dream has always been to travel. I want to travel outside the country. I will be traveling outside the country next year. My goal is to get my passport before the end of this year. That will be my present to myself for accomplishing finding my true self. It's been a very long journey. It's been a very hard journey. It's been a very bumpy road. A lot of times I want to pull back and, just do the mundane thing and zone out and just be a drone. But when I start to do that, I fall in that line of anxiety and depression and that guilt. And that's not for me. I don't like feeling like that. There's no reason to feel like that. I don't need the self-inflicting pain anymore. It no longer serves me. So that's why I love working towards my future goals. Some people might think I'm making sacrifices, but I'm really just readjusting my life and my way of being, so reaching my goals is more attainable. Doing a full reevaluation of my life is not an easy process. It's a lengthy process. And when you dive into it and you get into the meat of it, at first it's a little scary, I admit, but after you get through those first few scary hurdles and you start doing it and things get more and more exciting, you really, really want to sink your hands into the meat of it and just make it your own, so you can make that perfect loaf of bread. You knead it like a bread dough, and you just pull it apart, and you take it, and then you wrap it, let it sit so it can rise up, and then you play with it again. You do it a little bit more, go through that process, and you pull it, and then you take it and you make it, and then you can braid it into this beautiful piece of artwork. And then you can take your time and make sure all the edging is just perfect. And then you can look at it and let it sit for a minute as it rises higher into this beautiful dome, perfect essence of life. When you put it in the oven, you bake it and you pull it out and you break it open, you're just yes, I created this. I made this. I feed myself with my own energy. I've made my energy tangible for my body to digest it. It's all about the intentions and the way you look at things. So whenever I'm making food, that's how I talk to my food. Whether I use my inner voice or if I use my outer voice, I still do that conversation when I'm making my food. And it's very empowering. I love it. That's why when I went on my road trip, I was a lot of preparation for it. I was preparing for a month and a half, slowly buying things and getting things together that I needed. And then when I was on my road trip, I realized all the things I didn't have that I needed, or the things that I had that I needed to improve, like my cooler. I only had a foldable cooler. That was not good for my road trip. Now I have a more industrial hard cooler that holds ice a lot longer, so I'm good. I thought about getting a plug-in cooler, but then I was like, I don't want to worry about draining the battery on my car to keep it running, because I already have an inverter for those emergency times that I need to charge something and I don't have the plug for it, the lighter plug. It's a lot of preparation, and as I made the preparation for my road trip, I have to look at life in the same perspective. Preparation, what you need to do for your daily things, your weekly things, your monthly things, and the annual things. Because by going on that first road trip, it made a whole new checklist for me for this coming summer when I do my next road trip. Because this last one, I was gone for a month and a half. This next one, I want to be gone for 3 or 4 months, and I want to take my son with me. So there's a lot more preparation involved. But the fact that I did a road trip by myself for a month and a half, it taught me a lot on the things that I took that I didn't need and the things that I didn't bring, so I can learn how to balance all that out. It's always a process, and I'm sure after we do our road trip next year together, I'll learn how to make a new list about what we'll need for the next summer or the next year, or what we would do what would be different for when we go across seas. How would we travel then? and prepare for whatever country we want to go to ahead of time. Like if we're going to rent an Airbnb, if we're going to do the backpacking, if we're going to stay with friends, and how long we're going to be in each place. Even if we're going to be gone 6 months, you still need to have a plan. You can't just jump on and then go and then be. We could, but it would be a harder survival. It would be a much harder journey to create. But there's all levels of everything. It's your level of comfort. Do you want to dive in deep and just like take it in, or you want to have a little preparation? For my son, I need the preparation. For me, I can just go. I'll just do and just say, okay, universe, what am I supposed to learn here? Teach me something new. And I'll be excited to learn whatever that process is, good, bad, indifferent. Especially through the split with my second husband, I've learned that it's going to take me time to really open back up to people, to trust people, because my time and energy is very valuable to me. It's very special to me, and I don't want to give it to someone that doesn't appreciate it. I don't want to lose myself in someone else's issues and try to take them on as my own and break myself again. As everybody can heal themselves. You don't need anyone to fix you. You fix you. You believe in you. Make it happen. I know you can, because I survived my breakup, and now I'm thriving through my success of my new life that I'm creating, and I'm loving it. Everything that I'm doing. Yeah, it can be super scary going through all these new things, but embracing them and continuing on through them, it's really elevating. So I hope that helps you a little bit. I've been going on for 42 minutes, so I'm going to stop here. I'll probably do a part 2 about after summer and what it was like coming home from my road trip and then readjusting to my daily family life. We'll leave that for part 2. So remember, have an amazing grand rising, you beautiful souls. I love you, and I love me. And you do you, and I'll do me, and we'll be good. Yeah, baby. Mwah.